I'm glad to see you were able to find this video. I'd also be glad to hear from you. Let me know what you want to see and what you're having trouble with so I can make content that's useful and meaningful to you. With that said, let's jump right in, shall we? So our previous video, the one that came out on Tuesday, was the lecture portion of the Working with Signs topic. And so what we did is we went in and we looked in detail as to how you would handle having different positive and negative integers in an equation. So I do suggest you go through that before going into this one because it can be a little confusing. And the reason we pulled out Working with Signs into its own separate module rather than continuing on with the actual acronym BEDMIS is because typically when people are having trouble with equations, it tends to come back to having issues with signs, whether or not they don't know how to handle different signs working together, or if it's that they're dropping their signs. If you go back and you follow through where you worked through your equation, you'll find that typically where most people are having issues is with their signs. So this is why I wanted to really pull it out and make sure we spend some time to focus and really have that strong fundamental base and we know how to work with the signs. So this video is the follow-up to the practice questions that were given at the end of the Tuesday video. And so in here we're going to walk through each and every one of those examples and we're going to talk about how the equation should evolve as we're starting to solve it. Just a high-level review. I'm not going to go into detail as to all of the different permutations of the signs working together, but there are positive and negative numbers. If a number doesn't have a sign associated with it, it's positive. Negative numbers need to explicitly say that they are negative. And the hard and fast rule, if you have a positive and a positive or a negative and a positive together, is if the signs match, you can reduce that to being positive. If the signs don't match, then it's negative. Okay? And that can be really confusing, and we went into a lot of detail on how that works in the previous videos, but if you're still having problems with it, please let me know and we'll go back into more detail. I really want to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we all understand how and why you get a negative number or a positive number when working with multiple different signs. Again, if you're having trouble with some kind of a fundamental concept, once you start making it more complicated, you start adding to a theory, it only gets more difficult. So really, please speak up if you're having any issues. So this was the list of questions that I had left for you on Tuesday, and I gave you that whole Wednesday on purpose so that way you could go through and actually do them. And I really do suggest you do them all by hand. Doing them by hand, you actually get that hand to mind ratio going through, and you'll actually get better and it'll feel more natural to do these equations. Now, we haven't talked about brackets, and if we look at these equations, we can quickly see that a lot of these equations have brackets in them, and we're not going to go into detail as to how to expand out a bracket because it's essentially what we're doing, but because all of our signs are empty, they're just 1, we're essentially just multiplying by 1. So instead what we're going to do is we're just going to remove the brackets as we go through because they're really just there for legibility. Again, we went over this in the Tuesday video, so if you watch the Tuesday video, this should already make sense. So we're not going to talk about expanding the brackets, we're just going to talk about removing the brackets that were there originally for legibility. Now let's go ahead and start with the first equation. We have A, which is 5 minus 3 minus a negative 1. So here we can see that we have 2 negative signs right beside each other. So if I write it out, we remove the brackets, we can see we have a 5 minus 3 with 2 negative signs. Because the signs are the same, we can reduce that down into a positive. So let's clean up the equation, and now we have 5 minus 3 plus 1. Now that our equation is clean, we can go ahead and just start solving it. And we want to solve the first operation first, so 5 minus 3 is equal to 2, and we drop the rest of the equation down. 2 plus 1 is equal to 3. Since there's no further operations required, we can just say that our final answer is 3. Looking at B, we have minus 1 plus a minus 5. So let's remove the brackets, and now we can see we have minus 1 plus a minus 5. Now we can see that the plus and the minus are beside each other, and we want to clean up our equation. So a plus and a minus are different, so we have to make sure that it's a minus sign that's there. So now we have a new equation of -1 minus 5. Since our equation is clean, we can go ahead and solve the first operation. Since there is only one, we can go -1 minus 5 is equal to -6. There's no further operations required, so we can just say that our final answer is -6. Our next equation, we can see that there's actually two brackets. So let's go ahead and start cleaning up the equation. Again, we only want to do one thing at a time, so let's go ahead and look at our equation. We have -1 plus a positive 5. So let's take out those brackets and take a look at it. We have two plus signs that are beside each other. Now, if we have two plus signs, they are the same, so we can reduce that to being a plus sign. Now we have -1 plus 5, and we drop the rest of the equation down. So now if we look again, we have a bracket that we can remove that was there for legibility purposes. So let's go ahead and remove the brackets. Now we have a -1 plus 5 and then two minus signs beside each other. Two minus signs are the same. They're both the same sign, so we can reduce that down to a plus sign. Now our equation will be -1 plus 5 plus 3. Since our equation is clean, we can go ahead and start solving it, doing the first operation first. -1 plus 5 is equal to 4, and we drop the rest of the equation. Now we can look at 4 plus 3. That's equal to 7. There's no further operations required, so our final answer is 7. Our next equation, again, we have two sets of brackets that we can clean up, so let's go ahead and just start with the first one. So if we take out the brackets, we can see that we have 2 minus a minus 8. Now, because the two minuses are the same, we can replace that with a plus sign, so 2 plus 8 plus a positive 2. Again, we have another bracket, so we can go ahead and clean that up. Now we have 2 plus 8 plus 2. We can see now clearly that there are two plus signs beside each other. Because they're the same, they can be converted into one plus sign. So it now becomes 2 plus 8 plus 2. Now that our equation is clean, we can go ahead and start solving it. We do the first operation first, so 2 plus 8 is equal to 10, and then we drop the rest of the equation. 10 plus 2 is equal to 12, giving us a final answer of 12. Okay, again, we can see that we have some cleanup that has to be done in this equation, so let's go ahead and remove the brackets. Now we have 1 minus a minus 5. We have two minuses right beside each other, and because those are the same, we can go ahead and change it into a plus sign. So our new equation is 1 minus a plus 5. So, since our equation is clean, we can go ahead and start solving it. 1 minus 1 is equal to 0, and we drop the rest of the equation down. Because 5 is a positive number, and it's now the only part, it's at the front, we don't actually have to show the plus sign. So, because we want to make sure it's clean, we're just going to leave 5. There's nothing left to solve, so our final answer is 5. F. Now if we look at our equation, we actually have nothing to clean up. This is as clean as it can be, so let's just go ahead and start solving it. The first operation in this equation is -2 plus 4. That gives us a positive 2, and we drop the rest of the equation down. 2 plus 8 is equal to 10, and there's nothing left to solve, so our final answer is 10. So if we look at G, this does require some cleanup, so let's go ahead and remove the bracket. Now we have a -1 minus a minus 11 plus 2. We can see that there are two minus signs there, and because they're the same, we can reduce that into a plus sign. So let's go ahead and clean up our line. Our new equation is -1 plus 11 plus 2. Now that our equation is clean, we can go ahead and start solving. The first operation is -1 plus 11. That gives us 10, and we drop the rest of the equation. 10 plus 2 is equal to 12, and there's no further operations required, so we can highlight that the final answer is 12. H, now this one's a little bit longer, and again, no matter how long we make an equation, it doesn't make it any more difficult because we're only doing one thing per line. It just means there's going to be more steps, but we're not making it any more complicated. So when we look at this, we can see that there are some brackets that we can remove. We can clean up this line. So let's go ahead and start doing that. We'll remove the brackets around the 8. And now we can see we have 3 plus 2 minus a minus 8, and we drop the rest of the equation. Because we have two minuses beside each other, and because the two are the same, we can reduce that into a plus sign. Now we have 3 plus 2 plus 8 minus 5 plus a -1 because we're just dropping the rest of the equation down. Now when we look at this equation, we see, oh, there are more brackets that we can remove, so let's go ahead and clean that up. Now when we look at it, we can see it's 3 plus 2 plus 8 minus 5 plus a minus 1. Again, we have two signs that are beside each other, so let's go ahead and reduce that. Because the plus and the minus are different, it turns into a minus sign. So now our line is 3 plus 2 plus 8 minus 5 minus 1. Now that our equation is clean, we can go ahead and start solving. So we'll do the first operation first. 3 plus 2 is equal to 5, and we drop the rest of the equation. Now we look at the first operation. 5 plus 8 is 13, and again we drop the rest of the equation. 13 minus 5 is equal to 8, bringing down the minus 1. Now our last operation is 8 minus 1, which is 7. So our final answer for this equation is 7. Again, we have some brackets we want to clean up, so let's go ahead and remove the brackets. So 13 minus 2 minus a -7. There are two minus signs beside each other, so we can convert that into a plus sign. So now we have 13 minus 2 plus 7. Now that our operation is clean, we can go ahead and start solving. So 13 minus 2 is 11, and we drop the rest of the equation. 11 plus 7 is equal to 18, and there's no further operations to do, so we can just say that our final answer is 18. Let's look at J. Again, we can see that there's some brackets that we can clean up, so let's go ahead and do that first. So let's remove the brackets, and we can see that there's a minus and a plus sign beside each other. Now the minus and the plus are different, so we want to make sure that we reduce it down to a minus sign. Our new equation is 8 minus 5 minus 2. Now that our line is clean, we can go ahead and start solving. So 8 minus 5 is equal to 3, and we drop the rest of the equation. 3 minus 2 is equal to 1, and so there's no further operations required. We can just say that the final answer is 1. Let's look at K here. So K, again, we have some brackets that we can clean up, so let's remove the brackets, and we see 2 minus a minus 8. Well, the two negative signs are the same, so we can reduce that down to a positive. So let's go ahead and clean up the line. We have 2 plus 8 minus 4. Since the line is clean, we can go ahead and start solving. 2 plus 8 is equal to 10, and we drop the rest of the equation. 10 minus 4 is equal to 6, and there's no further operation, so we can just say that the final answer is 6. Okay, let's look at L now. There are a couple sets of brackets, but we're going to just do the first bracket first, and we'll clean up the second one after. So let's go ahead and just start cleaning it up. We'll remove the brackets around the 9, and let's look at the equation. We have minus 1 plus 2 plus a minus 9, and then we dropped the rest of the equation. But we have that plus and the minus beside each other. Because they're different, we want to make sure that we reduce it down to a negative sign. So let's go ahead and clean up the line. Minus 1 plus 2 minus 9 minus a plus 5, which is in brackets. So let's go ahead and remove the brackets. So now we have minus 1 plus 2 minus 9 minus a positive 5. So again, we have two signs that are beside each other that are different. So we want to make sure that we reduce that down into a negative sign. So let's go ahead and clean up our line again. We have minus 1 plus 2 minus 9 minus 5. Now that our line is clean, we can go ahead and start solving. So let's look at this. We have minus 1 plus 2. That gives us a total of 1, and we drop the rest of the equation. So now we have 1 minus 9. That's negative 8, and we're bringing down the rest of the equation. Minus 8 minus 5 is equal to minus 13. So our final answer is negative 13. Okay, M, we have one bracket, so let's go ahead and clean that up, because we want to do that cleanup before we start actually solving the equation. So let's look. 8 minus 7 minus a minus 6. We have two negative signs beside each other, so we can convert that into a plus sign. So let's look. 8 minus 7 plus 6. Now that our line is clean, we can go ahead and start solving. So we'll do the first operation first. 8 minus 7 is 1, and we drop the rest of the equation. 1 plus 6 is equal to 7. And since there's no further operations required, we can go ahead and state that the final answer is 7. N. So this one doesn't have any brackets to clean up, so we can just go ahead and start solving the equation, and we do the first operation first. So 1 plus 1 is 2, and we drop the rest of the equation. Our new line is 2 plus 2, so we can go ahead and solve that, and that gives us an answer of 4. There's no further operations required, so we can just say that our final answer is 4. Here's another one that doesn't have any cleanup required, so that means we can go ahead and just start solving the equation, and the first operation we have is negative 4 minus 5. Negative 4 minus 5 is equal to negative 9, and we drop the rest of the equation. Minus 9 minus 6 is equal to minus 15. There's no further operations required, so we can just say that the final answer is negative 15. P. We look at the equation, we can see that there's going to be some cleanup that needs to be done, so we're going to go ahead and do that first. We'll remove the brackets around the 7 first, the negative 7, and then we'll drop the rest of the equation. So let's take a look at it. We have 9 plus 8 minus a minus 7 plus a minus 2. In between the 8 and the 7, there are two negative signs beside each other. Because they are the same, we can reduce that down to a plus sign. So let's go ahead and clean up the line. We have 9 plus 8 plus 7 plus a negative 2. There's more cleanup that can be done. We can remove the brackets around the 2, so let's go ahead and do that. We have 9 plus 8 plus a negative 2. Now we have a plus and a minus beside each other, and those two are different. So we want to make sure that we reduce that down into a negative sign. Our new line is 9 plus 8 plus 7 minus 2. Now that our line is clean, we can go ahead and start solving it. So let's look at the first operation. 9 plus 8 is equal to 17, and we drop the rest of the equation. 17 plus 7 is 24, and again, we drop the rest of the equation. 24 minus 2 is 22, and there's no further operations required, so we can just say that our final answer is 22. So here, again, we have some cleanup we can do, so let's go ahead and start with that. We'll remove the brackets, and let's take a look at the line. We have 4 plus 5 plus a positive 9. We have two signs that are both the same. They're both positive, so we can reduce that into one positive sign. So let's go ahead and clean up our line. We have 4 plus 5 plus 9. Since our equation is clean, we can go ahead and start solving it. So 4 plus 5 is equal to 9, and we drop the rest of the equation. 9 plus 9 is equal to 18, and there's no further operations required, so we can just say that our final answer is 18. R, again, we have some cleanup that we can do, so let's go ahead and remove the brackets and take a look at the line. We have 1 plus 2 minus a minus 9. There again, there's two negative signs beside each other, and since they're the same, we can change that into a single plus sign. So 1 plus 2 is 2, and the two negative signs become a plus, so now our new line is 1 plus 2 plus 9. Since the equation is clean, we can go ahead and start solving. 1 plus 2 is 3, and we drop the rest of the equation. 3 plus 9 is 12, and there's no further operations required, so our final answer is 12. Let's take a look at S. Again, we have some cleanup that we can do, so let's go ahead and remove the brackets and see what we have. We have 7 plus 6 minus a negative 11. The two signs that are beside each other are both negative, so we can reduce that to being positive. So let's go ahead and clean up our line. It now becomes 7 plus 6 plus 11. Since our line is clean, we can go ahead and start solving it. 7 plus 6 is equal to 13, and we drop the rest of the equation. 13 plus 11 is equal to 24, and there are no further operations required, so we can go ahead and state that our final answer is 24. Okay, so this one has 3 different brackets that we can clean up. So let's go ahead and we're going to do the first one first because we only want to do one thing per line. So let's go ahead and remove the brackets around the negative 9. So our line is 4 minus 9, and we brought down the rest of the equation. The two signs that are beside each other currently are both negative. Since they're the same, we can go ahead and reduce that to a positive. So our new line is equal to 4 plus 9 minus a negative 1 plus a positive 2. We can again do more cleanup, so let's go ahead and remove the brackets around the negative 1. So our line becomes 4 plus 9 minus 1 plus a positive 2. The two negative signs are the same, so we can go ahead and reduce that to a plus. Let's go ahead and clean up our line. 4 plus 9 plus 1 plus a positive 2. There's still another bracket, so let's go ahead and remove the bracket, and let's see what we have. We have 4 plus 9 plus 1 plus a positive 2. Now the two signs that we have are positive, but because they're both the same, we can still reduce that to a positive sign. So our new line becomes 4 plus 9 plus 1 plus 2. Now we've gotten rid of all of those double signs, our line is clean, we can go ahead and start solving. So the first operation in this equation is 4 plus 9, which is 13, and we drop the rest of the equation. 13 plus 1 is equal to 14, and we drop the rest of the equation. 14 plus 2 is equal to 16, and we drop the rest of the equation. So we can say that our final answer is 16. So we went through a lot of examples, and I'm hoping you did well on them. If you had any problems, please go through them. The format that we're following, making sure that your line is clean, making sure that you're doing one step per line and you're doing one operation at a time, really allows you to go back and check where you made your mistake. It gives a very natural flow, and you're able to really do a deep down dive as to what's going on as you're doing it. Again, signs are one of those things where people just tend to have trouble with, so really spend some time making sure you feel very comfortable with it. And the hard and fast dirty rule for whether or not you should reduce two signs to a positive or a negative is if the signs are the same, so it's a plus and a plus or a minus and a minus, it gets converted into a positive. If the signs are different, then it's negative. So if it's a plus and a minus or a minus and a plus, it will be negative. And now if you have three signs in a row, because you're only doing one at a time, it shouldn't be any different, right? You're going to look at the first two signs and reduce that, and then now you'll have two in a row rather than three. So remember, no matter how big your equation is, no matter how long it is, it's just adding steps. We're not adding to the complexity. We're just making more steps. I can keep adding on so many more different operations to the equation. It's not making the equation any harder. As long as you make sure that you're only doing one operation per time, you're really only doing one operation, right? You're only doing addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. So it's really great to do it in this format. Our next video, we're going to go back to Bedmas. We're going to go back to that focus, and we're going to look at brackets, which is actually the first step in the order of operations, and we'll take a deep dive into that. But you know I love to hear from you, so if you have any questions or would like help with what we're talking about now, or if you have future topic ideas that you would like to see, let me know. I want to make content that's useful and meaningful to you. So I need to hear your feedback, and I look forward to seeing you at the next video.